Hello, hello, William Brown Percussion with another album review here. I've got the merch on, the William Brown Percussion merch. If I sold a t-shirt with my logo printed on it, would a million of you buy it and make me a millionaire? That would be pretty nice. Think about it. Today we're going to be reviewing Danny Elfman, Percussion Concerto and Wunderkammer. It's performed by the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Joanne Falletta. The Percussion Concerto is performed by Colin Currie. And the Cantos Chamber Choir is also used on Wunderkammer, and the last piece... What's the last piece? Are You Lost? I was lost trying to find the last piece. Danny Elfman is a huge composer that you probably know from, well, he's worked with Marvel, he's worked with Tim Burton, he wrote the theme song for The Simpsons, he's been huge for a long time. Colin Currie is probably the leading percussion concerto soloist. He travels and champions many new works. Joanne Falletta, I saw her conduct recently. I've actually played under her baton several times. She has a huge list of accolades and is really quite prolific as a recording artist and as a champion of American composers. So I think on this album there's two just generic orchestral works. I always enjoy that reviewing percussion albums takes me through multiple types of collaborations, and I hope I have enough relevant experience to speak on these varied musical forces with some form of wisdom. Let's start off with, and excuse my pronunciation of, Wunderkammer, which I believe translates to Chamber of Curiosities, perhaps Chamber of Wonder. Movement 1, we have a huge big swell, and we are off with woodwind arpeggiations, glockenspiel, string swells, and horn melodies. I wasn't expecting the chorus to enter for this piece, but it sounds like a female chorus enters with kind of a wordless motif. There's some very luscious tambourine playing on this movement for quite a while. Great sound quality, everything is really clear. So this first movement sounds very 1980s cinematic, which, I mean, I've recently played the Batman 1989 score, which is composed by Elfman, so it's not surprising that that's the connection that fires in my head. There's just so much happening, all very fantastical. There are a ton of ideas and characters going by. Everything is quite evocative and entertaining in this opening movement. We truly seem to be in a chamber of various fantastic and magical curiosities. Just as you might browse such a shop, you don't linger too much on any one theme, but you rush to one item and then the next. I suspect this second movement, to continue the analogy, is to find one particular exhibit that catches your eye for longer, to watch some contraption twirl and dance in a room of shadows and mist. Perhaps it's nostalgic or tragic in some way to you. The forces Elfman is dealing with in the second movement are large but standard. Everything it's playing its role in a manner very common to what you've heard in movie scoring, which is not a bad thing. I'm just trying to describe how it sounds in a broad way. All the typical orchestral tropes are here, but utilized in enjoyable ways. There's a slow chorale that builds into a lovely metallic percussion and harp soundscape that supports a violin solo. I'll mention this several times, so apologies for repeating myself, but much of Danny Elfman's work in his slow movements seem to be very Bartokian Nacht music. In movement 3 of Wunderkammer, a swell similar to movement 1 opens into a kind of chaotic carnival feel in 3/8 or some multiple, as if the shop is now putting on a magnificent show for you to enjoy. The percussionists get a short moment to shine, followed by a lovely usage of orchestral saxophone. The chorus enters again for a nice moment, followed by a piano solo. This is just a nice piece for people that like how a full modern orchestra sounds. I like how an orchestra sounds, and so I like this. It is fun, energetic, lightly adventurous, but easy to digest. Nothing too heavy or high art is happening here, but it really is quite a pleasing visit to this Chamber of Curiosities. I like pieces sometimes that you can enjoy like a piece of candy and not worry that you're missing some huge emotional core to the work. Now we've arrived at the Percussion Concerto. The opening movement, Triangle, There's a soloist in the middle with two percussionists on sides of the stage, echoing material around the triangle. This is well produced in headphones with, one percussionist on the left, one percussionist on the right, and the soloist centered. The piece does sound like a piano concerto at the beginning. I would 1,000% believe this is a piano concerto for a little bit. The tambourines sound really nice in this recording. This is the second time I've noticed them. Around 2 minutes in, I now believe this is a percussion concerto. Although it sounds more like a trio concerto so far, with how the parts are bouncing around. Nothing sounds particularly soloistic yet. As must always be revealed, what is our arsenal here? So far I've got Glock, temple blocks, other wood blocks and wood slats like soprano wood blocks, marimba, toms, tambourine, vibes, chimes, crotales, timpani. That's what I've gathered. There's some more focused material, but it's just like stair-step writing with doubles. There's nothing to be gained from this, not really any motifs or melodies to grab. What do I mean by stair-step? Just kind of da-da-doo-doo-da-da-doo-doo-da-da-doo-da-da. We're just playing diddles back and forth. We're going up and down and back again. I mean, every instrument does this. Percussionists can be quite guilty of it. So the primary gimmick of this first movement works quite well. The triangle does a great job trading around the material, and everything is performed quite precisely. Colin Currie is of course excellent. He's just nailing every lick. Our second movement is titled DSCH, which seems to be based on the Shostakovich motif of D, E flat, C, B. This spells out part of his name in German musical notation, and he uses it in quite a few works. So some Almglocken, or tuned gongs, enter the mix here for that theme. The soloist is playing vibraphone, followed by a lot of various keyboard playing. A ton more of that staircase writing. We're just kind of playing diddles here. You can find this theme throughout the movement. There's a lot of dark drama. I didn't find any of the percussion writing very interesting. It's weirdly kind of a moto perpetuo. I feel like I could have used some more space. I don't feel like I processed this movement very well. It doesn't sound like a concerto, really, apart from some okay marimba moments. It's just an orchestral movement with like an abnormal amount of percussion. That's really not necessarily a bad thing, but the orchestral writing here isn't very fascinating either. Everybody is just playing stuff. I don't know if one is supporting the other or accompanying, or I just don't quite know what's going on. I think the marimba writing can be much better here, especially with such a fun little theme to base it on. In our third movement, Down, Colin Currie says that this uses tone rows, maybe some like Schoenberg influences. And, I mean, tone rows don't have to be discordant. They could certainly be used here, but the movement is not really as weird as Currie makes it out to be. It's pretty standard night music for a concert hall or for a theater. I just don't like the material the soloist is playing. It's disconnected from the orchestra in a baffling way. It's neither serving as accompaniment or generating any material. So what does that leave? I guess it's just rhythm and embellishment. The slower, spacious section at the end of the movement is honestly nice. Some odd sound effects from percussion. Then I heard bowed crotales, so I have to give it minus 500 points. Props to Colin Currie for executing such a difficult technique so precisely. The fourth movement, Syncopate, big theme on vibraphone with some huge hits. This is right away the most engaged I've been in the concerto. The vibraphone is providing a pivotal role, with the orchestra hinging on its material and interacting with it heavily. Later, we get more percussive elements with a very groovy Bond-esque string glissando motif that returns once or twice later on. The vibraphone returns to center stage. There's one mistake I noticed, some desync with the tambourine player for a little bit there. There's another several moments after the 5-minute mark in this movement where the piano steals all the thematic material. Don't give it to the piano. Keep it. Let the percussionist have it. We end with more big energy and hits over fast vibraphone licks, and we are done. I'll go back over this right after we tackle the last piece here. Are You Lost is for female or children's choir and chamber orchestra. We've got a very small woodwind section, timpani and percussion, which is vibraphone, glockenspiel, bass drum, bells, crotale, suspended cymbal, triangle, celeste, and piano and strings. So again, this is very Nacht music. It's a gentle piece, never abrasive, quite lovely, no singular memorable moment here. Okay, I feel like I sped through some of that. I didn't mean to. We're done with the album. It's an hour-long album, but there's a lot to think about here. Elfman's music on this album is enjoyable, particularly the Wunderkammer, but it never rises above kind of a cinematic pastiche. There's no Schenkerian analysis to be had here. There's no apotheosis to the piece that's going to stick in your mind. This works very well and works best for a piece like Wunderkammer that I don't think is really trying to do anything more, but the following pieces suffered quite a bit, in my opinion. The percussive writing is just quite typical. I receive absolutely no pleasure from hearing a fast lick on some variation of wood slats, particularly if it serves no larger purpose than embellishment. I keep referencing the Wunderkammer because honestly, in that piece, if you put the percussionist at the front of the stage to display some of the curious sounds used, and then just literally copied several of the motifs onto a marimba part for the soloist, I think you'd have a much more charming and entertaining percussion concerto than the one that was actually played. Colin Currie's performance seems to be controlled, energetic, and balanced. My congratulations to him, and thank him for bringing forth another percussion concerto. The sound and production quality is wonderful for the orchestra. Perhaps we could have boosted percussion a bit in the concerto, but I think that's mostly the writing. All in all, this doesn't satisfy my search for a radically successful percussion concerto. I love taking that 4-note Shostakovich theme, and I just feel like that wasn't developed enough. I think that could have been some really exciting material that we could have heard on a number of different percussion instruments. Maybe I just missed some, but that's the kind of theme, it would have been awesome to hear a marimba fugue on, The final movement is pretty successful. So there's some things to be excited about in this concerto and to keep in mind for future concerto writing. But even some of the orchestral writing on this was disappointing, even compared to Elfman's own opening work on this program. I really did quite like Wunderkammer, and the performances are great. So I'll give this a 7 out of 10. What are your favorite works from Danny Elfman? Have you ever seen Colin Currie in concert? What percussion concerti should I turn to satisfy my search? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next week.